Hey guys, we're back for day 3 of virtual camp. I have a special guest today, Bethany, my sister, all the way from India. Woo!
Hi.
Can always be here for real camp, so this is exciting. So on day 1, we kind of talked about what we're hoping for camp and talked about having a relationship with God, not just it being religion, going to church. And so we're going to continue in that vein. We're talking about how having a relationship with God is like having a relationship with other people. There's a lot of similarities. And so then on day 2, yesterday, we talked about how when we have a relationship with God, we want to spend time with him, just like we want to spend time with a person we're in a relationship with. And I really challenge y'all every day of virtual camp to find some spot and spend a few minutes with God every day so we can start working on that habit. So if you've already done that the last 2 days, awesome job. I hope you're sending me your information on the challenges so we can get points, and the point updates will be on Instagram. And so it's going to be good. We miss you and we love you. I'm video recording sort of from outside so it can feel like camp a little bit. So yeah, anyway, today we're going to talk about a very important part of relationships, and that's communication, talking with the person you're in a relationship with. And generally, when we are talking to God, we call that prayer. There could go by other names, but that's what we typically say. So communication is important in any relationship, and it's definitely important in our relationship with God. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So my first question for Bethany is, when we communicate with God, we call that prayer usually. What does prayer mean to you?
Yeah, thanks, Susie. First of all, I'm so excited to be with you guys, even though we're far away, but to be able to share. Prayer for me is really what Susie was saying. It's communication with God. It's talking with him. But I think when I was thinking about this whole idea of prayer, the big thing about prayer for me is prayer means never being alone. That I never have to be alone, because I have this way that God has created for me to be able to talk to him and really just to be present with him. Even though we know God's always there, when I pray, I'm able to actually just be with him, and I can do that at any time. So even more than like how we pray or trying to define it, the big thing that's so meaningful for me is that even when I'm physically alone, I don't ever have to be alone. I remember when I was in college, we had a lady who came and spoke, and she talked about this idea of transforming places of loneliness into places of aloneness with God. And that even when we feel lonely, that God can like use that to turn our hearts towards him, and learning to make that being alone with him. And that kind of clicked with me when I was in college. And I've thought about that a lot since, because I feel like God's been able to do that in my journey of getting to know him, talking to him through prayer. It's actually become like Susie's and I guess Mason have talked to you about that relationship growing, because we talk all the time and I never have to be alone. So I think prayer for me means never being alone. And that's in all kinds of different ways. Prayer is not just like going through a list of things, it's talking openly and honestly to God about anything and everything in my life. And I mean anything and everything, what I'm feeling, what I need, who I'm angry with, what I'm disappointed about, what, just what's going on in my family, really anything that's on my mind. Prayer is just telling God those things, talking to him, asking him for things I need. And then really importantly, because I do communication training for a living, and one of the big things we talk about is listening and active listening. Prayer isn't just I have to say these things to God, but prayer also involves just being quiet and listening for what he might say to us, asking him questions. A lot of my time of prayer is really just asking God questions. God, what do you think about this? How do you feel about this? And sometimes even, God, how do you feel about me right now? Because I don't really like how I feel about me, but how do you feel? And then listening to what he says, which he speaks to us through the Bible. I know you all will probably be talking about that later, but he can speak directly to our hearts too. So that process of praying to me means that journey of never being alone, because I always have him to talk to, and he always has something to say to me.
That's awesome. That's definitely like, I never thought of it about it that way, but that's one of my favorite things about being in a relationship with God is it's not we have to go somewhere at a certain time. It's like
Mm,
literally 24/7. We can talk to him whenever about anything. We're not going to hurt his feelings, like we can
right.
really talk to him. And so that's a really good way to put it. And then listening is an important part too that I'm sure we'll continue to talk about. Now for me, I'm really big into like practical help. And
Mm.
so, what kind of practical things can you say, maybe for people that they've almost never prayed or just like barely, maybe before a meal or at church, or people that they have tried to pray and they've really struggled? What are some practical ways we could help? And then also talk more about practical ways to listen, because that's something I know that has been hard for me, just when your mind goes everywhere.
Yeah. No, I totally understand that because my mind goes everywhere too when I pray. And I've been doing this thing of praying for years and I still get distracted all the time. So one of my favorite things to do is actually to walk and pray. I like to like go on you could call it a prayer walk. This is a fancy name for saying that I talk to God while I'm walking. When I try to sit down and like just like sit and pray, it's almost impossible for me. Maybe I'm just too easily distractible. But I find even like in a prayer meeting, I'll get up and I'll walk around and pray because that physical activity of just walking kind of keeps my mind focused on what I'm trying to do. So for me, walking and praying is my favorite. Like sometimes just at night in our apartment complex, I'll go out and walk, or every so often, like today, I went out in the morning and I just took 10 minutes. I didn't, it's hot outside. I had to wear a mask. So I just walked around for about 10 minutes outside and prayed a little bit and listened. So for me, walking is my favorite because it just keeps my mind focused. And a lot of times when I walk and pray, I don't really start with saying anything. I don't have like an agenda on those times when it's just that relationship and spending time with the Lord. Sometimes there are things I need to talk to him about, but most days I just kind of walk and I tell him, I'm like, God, I'm here. Um, I want to walk with you. Like, and sometimes I have something to say to him that comes to my mind, and sometimes I just walk. And sometimes as I'm walking, I'll feel like a thought comes into my mind or a Bible verse, and I'm like, oh, is that you, God? And I kind of wait and see, okay, is that something that I think the Lord is saying or not? And over time, you just kind of learn to figure out what's my own thoughts and what's really from God. One of the ways that we can figure that out, you were asking about listening, Susie, and how to get better about listening. Well, when we are listening and we feel like there's something that comes into our mind that maybe is God speaking to us, first I usually write it down if I can. Like if I'm walking, I'll just type it up on a note on my phone and so I can check it later. But we just check to make sure, does it match what the Bible says? Because the Bible is our ultimate source of truth. God will never like tell us anything that's not in the Bible, or that's not consistent with the Bible, I should say. That he'll never contradict the Bible. So if it's something that is like a verse from the Bible, that's probably God speaking to you. If you remember a verse after you ask him a question, guess what? That's one of the primary ways he speaks to us. But he also may give you like specific ideas or direction. And so you just, what I do is it's not against the Bible and it seems to me like something God would say because it sounds like the kinds of things he said in the Bible, then I'll take that and I'll just say, okay, Lord, I think this is you. I'm going to do this unless you tell me it's not you. And you just kind of learn to walk with him like that. So for me, just walking without an agenda, kind of being ready to listen, seeing what he says. Sometimes when I walk and pray, I don't really start with praying. I'll start with my headphones on and some worship music. And I'll just kind of listen to that worship music. And then I might turn the music off and listen, or I might turn the music off and pray a little bit and then pause and listen. So walking and praying is one. If you've never started before, but you want to pray for some specific things or pray for people, I like writing things down on Post-it notes. So I'm a little bit obsessive and over the top. I have this foldable whiteboard that I carry around with me. I can take it when I travel. It folds up like this. And I have just different categories of things in my life that I want to pray for. I'm not going to show you this because it's all super personal stuff, But if you fold it out, you'd see like all kinds of Post-it notes full of different specific things I want to pray for. Now, I'm not very good about using it all the time. I don't pray for all those things very often, but I try to keep it where I can see it so that I remember, oh yeah, I want to pray for that or need to pray for that. And some days I'll just sit down with the list and I'll pray for some specific things on that list, or walk around my house and kind of come back and look and pray for some of those things. So sometimes like writing things down physically so you can remember to pray for them helps.
And let me just jump in there. I've definitely done that and found it helpful. There was a spot where I usually prayed, and I just had notes on the wall, and I usually put a day. It helped me, like on Mondays I pray for the missionaries, on Tuesdays I pray for my family, on Wednesdays I pray for the kids at Stoutsville. You know, like it helps to have things by day. Not that I can only pray for those things, but sometimes I feel like, oh my goodness, it's been this long and I haven't even prayed for such and such, and I should be praying every, you know. And so it's a helpful thing too, just to break it up that way. So I like that idea.
Yeah. And one thing that you just said stood out to me, because I feel like that a lot of times. Like sometimes when I go into pray, I'm like, I haven't prayed in so long, or I haven't prayed about this in so long. And so we put these systems in place to help us. And I also try to have those for a habit. But one thing that might help you if you haven't prayed in a while is when you come to start praying again, like this week, when you sit down to pray, maybe try not starting with feeling guilty that you don't pray enough. Now, if you feel in your heart like God is telling you that you need to like say sorry for that, then tell him sorry, but move on. Like when it comes to praying, God is always happy to be with us. Like he's not angry at you. God loves you, and he's excited about spending time with you. And so even when I've come into prayer and I've been like, God, it's been so long, or I'm so sorry, I always feel like he's telling me, I'm so happy that you're here. I'm so happy to see you. And just knowing that God's not like sitting there waiting to pounce on you because of how long it took you to come to pray. No, not at all. Like every time we come to pray, there's something amazing that he has for us, wants to speak to us. He wants to heal things in our hearts. He wants to speak to us about the future. He wants to give us hope. He wants to take the like painful emotions that we're feeling and to change our hearts. Like he's always happy to spend time with you. And I almost feel like somebody needs to hear that. Like God wants to be with you. He likes you. And when we come to prayer, we may have all these different things that we're processing about guilt, but he's always going to want to be with you and spend time with you. And that's really, really cool, because I would not always want to spend time with me. Yeah. So,
other things
go ahead.
Practically, did you have other thoughts?
Just one other thing. I find it really helpful to journal prayers, especially when I feel stuck. Like if I feel stuck with words to say, it helps me to actually write down the prayers. So I'll just write, in fact, I won't grab it now, but even today I was going through some papers and I had just journals where it's like Father or Papa, and then I just kind of write down what I'm feeling. I write down what's going on. And in that process of writing, sometimes I find that my own like thoughts get clarified. Like as I pray, I start to kind of understand better what's going on inside of me. And sometimes when I'm writing, I'll stop and I'll feel like the Lord is saying something to me. And then I'll just write that down. And I could be wrong. I mean, I'm not writing the Bible. Bible's already written. But those things are really encouraging when I'm kind of writing what I feel. And then it's almost like God's just speaking back to me and I write it down. And those are really nice to be able to go back and look at too, on days that are hard or days that are discouraging, to look back and see, oh yeah, last time I felt this, God was saying that, or, oh yeah, I feel that way now, but I know that this is true. So I find writing prayers down, and not huge, long prayers, even just short ones, but kind of writing those out.
Yeah, I've definitely found that helpful too. And when we're talking about journaling, because I know you all have your journal with you since I asked you to bring it, writing out prayers, or even just for me, kind of writing, this is what's on the main things I'm praying for. I did that near the beginning of college. I wrote, I'm praying to find a good group of friends. I'm praying to find a good church. I'm praying for God to provide for these needs. And when I came back to it a few months later, I was like, yes, he gave me the church, he gave me the friends, he gave me this provision in all these ways. And it's so exciting to be able to look back and see how God answered those prayers. And so that's a great one too. If there's something right now that's really on your heart, maybe you're worried about school next year, maybe you're worried about something in your family, maybe there's a big transition, going to college, going to high school, anything like that, and that's something you're worried about. Maybe you're asking for friends. I have things right now, since I'm about to be a mom, I have some special prayers. Like, I really want some mom friends. I really want some community. We're at a new church. I really want to find a small group. And I've written those down. I'm not going to be teaching next year, so I need some kind of part-time income. And I totally believe that I'm going to be able to look back and see how God answered all those prayers. And so today, maybe while you're praying and you're journaling, maybe write down some things that you've been praying for and see how God answers those. And we can talk a little bit more about the challenge that has to do with writing stuff down, but that's something that's been really helpful for me. And even when I'm just reading the Bible or anything, writing down verses that come out, because sometimes I go back and I feel like, man, God's never spoken to me. But then if I have written it down, I can be like, oh, he did. He showed me this verse. He gave me this verse at the right time, or he answered this prayer. He said this. So God is speaking. And sometimes one of the best ways to remind ourselves is to write down when we feel like he is saying something. So, So the next question, we kind of have talked about some emotions that might be coming up. How can prayer help us process those emotions?
That's a great question. And I think a really important part of prayer for me is having that outlet for processing what I'm feeling and being able to really kind of get past some of those things or get on the other side of overwhelming emotions is just by processing them with the Lord in prayer. So there's one exercise that I do with people. Actually, I've done this with a lot of people. I do a version of it professionally as well when we work on behavioral changes, but it has to do with us learning to be able to put some words around our emotions and then taking that to the Lord. So I'm going to just share this with you to give you an idea of how this might work and what you can do, and then I'll lay out for you what our challenge is going to be. Give me just a second here. Okay. Great. Susie, can you see that now?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So I'm going to put a list of words up here on the screen. This is a very short list. There's tons more emotion words. But if you're watching this and you want to take a screenshot of this or you want to pause, you can use words like this, or you could use any other list of emotion words. But one thing that I do, and I do this all the time, when I'm feeling really overwhelmed, so that could be feeling anxious or feeling frightened about the future, the things that Susie told you to write down about upcoming things you're praying about, my bet is that a lot of those things are very emotional for you. So being able to sit down, I'll take a list like this. I have a longer list. It's got like 80 words on it. If you really want that, Susie can get a copy of that to you. But I just kind of circle or I write down the words that I'm feeling. So I may think, well, I'm feeling alone. So I'd circle alone, or I'm feeling frustrated. I'm feeling betrayed. I'm feeling embarrassed. I'm feeling hurt. I'm feeling excited. Maybe sometimes that's happy emotions that you're feeling. But whatever those emotions are, I just either circle them on that paper, or if I don't have one of those papers with me, I just write them down. And I try to list out all of the different feelings that I'm feeling in that moment. And then I just take that paper and I tell God, God, this is what I'm feeling. I sometimes I just physically hold the list up or set my hand on the list or do something just to kind of represent God. This is where I'm at. This is what I'm feeling. And then once those things are there, letting him speak to my emotions. And what I found a lot of times is just the process of writing those down and kind of telling God, I'm giving you these emotions. It's amazing how those emotions get processed. And a lot of times on the other side of just those very simple prayers of, Lord, I feel hurt. Lord, I feel afraid. Lord, I feel this. And I'm giving those emotions to you, I find that he starts to actually change my emotions, or he'll speak something that brings peace to those emotions. Or if I'm writing down I feel afraid, I'll remember a verse about don't fear. Or if I'm feeling alone, I might write down I'm feeling alone, but then I'll remember Jesus saying that I'm always with you, or something like that. So in the process of writing those down, I kind of find that he helps me process through that. And this is not this is a concept that you see all through the Bible. You see this in the book of Psalms over and over and over again. You could go to almost any psalm and you see some kind of emotions. Yeah. But one that came to my mind was Psalm 88. I'm just going to quickly share that with you as well, just to give you an example of what this looks like and how we even see some of these hurt and angry emotions in the Bible. Susie, can y'all see that now?
Yes.
Okay, so Psalm 88, if you see verse 3, it says, "My life is full of troubles and death draws near. I'm as good as dead, like a strong man with no strength left." This whole psalm is just like overwhelmingly negative, angry emotions. You've driven my friends away by making them repulsive to me. My eyes are blinded with tears. Right? I've been sick and close to death. Your fierce anger has overwhelmed me. Darkness is my close friend. That's about as melodramatic. Like, I don't know if anyone listening to this could top that level of drama. I don't know. Susie knows y'all better, so maybe some of you can be more melodramatic than that. But this is a pretty intense emotions, and that's part of the Bible. And so what I want to challenge you to do, and Susie, I think this will be their challenge for your points.
Yes.
Yeah. Is to try in your journal to write at least one of your own Psalms. To do just an exercise where you write out to the Lord, this is what I'm feeling. It doesn't have to be as dramatic as the one that we just read. In fact, if you're feeling like happy and excited, you can write all that out too. But to take some time and just tell the Lord what you're feeling, not in like a perfect essay. You don't even have to use complete sentences when you're writing a psalm, right? It's almost like writing a poem. You could think of it like writing a poem if you want. But take some time, think about, this is what I'm feeling, and just kind of write that out like a prayer. So you're writing your own prayer with your feelings. And I think you'll be really surprised at what God does in changing your own emotions just in the process of writing that out.
Yeah, that's awesome. When Bethany and I talked about that, I haven't done it in a while, but I have files on my computer, my old computer, like of places where I did that. It was kind of like a poem for me, because to me, if I didn't have to write complete sentences, it was just easier because it was like a dump of my emotions. So like even just one word sometimes, or just a few words. And then I think, I'm not sure, but I think even after that, I could like even change the tone of my poem at the end as God kind of spoke into those things. I would have a but you say this, or you say this, and it just helps to write it all out, especially because emotions are just way crazy in your head. Mason knows, because he'll ask me like, what's wrong? I'm like, I can't even tell you. I'm just crying. It's all up there, especially now. But like sometimes it helps to just kind of get it out. And so that is the challenge. So for points, you don't have to send me a picture of your poem or you're writing your psalm, because that's very personal. But honor system, you can send me that you wrote one, or you can send me what happened when you wrote it, or a blurry picture of the page or something for points. So yeah. And it's been really good to talk about prayer. And if y'all, like always, if you have any questions, if anything came up while we were talking that you wanted to ask more about or learn more about, please message us on Facebook or Instagram, or if you have our number, any way you need to get a hold of us or ask someone for our number. We want to help you. If you want to talk to me or talk to Mason, or if you want to talk to Bethany, I can get you that information too. And so I hope that you learned a lot. Is there anything you want to add, Bethany?
No, just have fun. Prayer is like the greatest adventure of a lifetime. Oh, I did have one other practical thing. Okay, I'm loving this, guys. It's an app on the phone. It's called Lectio 365. Let me see if I can show you if the name of it will come up here on the app. Well, this is the app. It's really, really simple to use. The spelling of that is Lectio, Lectio 365. and it's a prayer app, but it's amazing. And it's like got a short devotional every day. It's got a small reading from a psalm, and you can read it, or it has an audio with people with really cool accents who read it out loud. They're usually about 10 minutes. And so it has like a reading. It'll tell you pause and pray about this. And you can keep going, or you can pause and pray if you have time to pause and pray about that. And then there's like a small passage from the Bible that it reads to you, gives you a question to reflect on that, reads it again, and closes. But it's really amazing. I've loved that. So even on days when I don't have a lot of time to like sit and do like a long prayer time, I kind of have that on in the morning while I'm getting ready, and it helps like put a little bit of God's word in my heart, but also helps me get started with prayer. I love this. I'm recommending it to everyone. It's super accessible and simple. So Lectio 365, you may want to just give that a try as well. Maybe not during camp, but I really wanted to tell you guys about that. So
Yeah,
that's it.
Mason was talking on the other one about how he likes to do a lot of his devotion time while you're driving. So if it reads out loud, you can do it while driving, and that would be a great way. I've noticed that structure helps me sometimes, having someone like say, okay, pray about this, especially if you just don't even know where to start. So yeah, that's an awesome resource. And like we said before, we're just giving you as many resources and ideas as we can so you can try them out and see what works best for you. It's not like you need to feel like you have to do all of them, but whatever really works best for you. And and so today when you spend time with God, or tomorrow, he's going to be so excited no matter how it goes. Don't get discouraged if you feel like you're struggling. He's just excited that you are spending time with him. He's excited that you want to get to know him better, and he wants to reach out to you and to pour out his love on you. And it's an exciting adventure. So thank you so much for being with us. We love you, and we'll see you tomorrow.